Okay, the final video in this guide to mixing and recording and everything we've been doing, tracking this band we recorded at our school, is to look at adding reverb. So we did balance and faders, we did panning, we did grouping our tracks, we did color coding them, we did some EQing, and we did some compression. And it's just worth having a quick note of what the compression and EQing has done to the track. So firstly, without any EQing or compression, the track sounds like this.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies.
And with the EQ and compression,
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies.
so even though I've only spent around about 10 or 15 minutes in this mix, it's already sounded a whole lot more polished than what it was before. There's a lot of fine tuning to do, but for this beginners getting going type videos, we're just showing the basics of things. I'm actually really happy with how it's sounding. It's coming along quite well. Okay, so the last step is to look at adding reverb and delay. And the purpose of reverb is to create some ambience or sense of space around the instruments. Because if you think about how the vocal was recorded, it was recorded with the microphone right up next to the singer's mouth. And we don't listen to singers like that. It would be kind of weird if we go up to a singer and put our ear right next to their mouth and listen to them. Because that would, well, firstly, they wouldn't want to have anything more to do with you, most likely, but that'd be kind of weird. But we need to replicate what it sounds like to us when we hear a singer in the room. No way, we don't have our ears right up next to their mouth, but we're usually sitting, you know, who knows, 6 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet away from them. And when we go further away from them, we hear reflections, we hear ambience, a reverberation in the room. So we need to use reverb to replicate that effect so that this close mic'd voice and other instruments can sound like they're actually in a space. And this is what actually have the effect of gluing things together as well. So the way we can do this, I'm going to collapse my guitars for a moment, is to use things called bus sends or auxiliary sends. Now on Logic here, we have them with these sends here, this little row across here. And if I go and create myself a few bus sends, doesn't matter which number I put it on, I'm going to go 10, and I'll just do one for now, I'll just do 10. When I did that, that created this other track over here automatically. Now in other software, the way that you create auxiliary or bus sends for effects is slightly different to this, and so you need to look at the tutorials for your software if you want to know how to do it. For example, in Ableton, you've got the A and B knobs, or if you've got the Ableton Live Intro, and just by turning those up, sends the signal to another track. So what these have done here is that this has created an alternate pathway for the sound signal to travel on. At the moment, the sound signal for this lead vocal, for example, is going to this fader here, and it's sending that signal to the stereo output, in which we're now hearing it on a recording or on the headphones. But using bus sends, we can duplicate the signal or send it to an alternate place as well. So when I created that bus 10, that B10 here, that created this auxiliary track over here, which I'm going to call reverb. And on that reverb, I'm going to go and place a plugin. And I've got a particular favorite, and they come from Slate Digital, and it's the Verb Suite Classics. Now, all software will have reverbs built into them, including Logic, but these are the ones I have discovered in the last few years that I absolutely think are fantastic. And for this, I'm going to go and create myself a preset of a hall, and I'm going to make it a large hall and boost the decay a bit. Now, what happens is that when I go to this track here, it's got this little knob on it. When I turn it up, that's going to send signal to this track over here where I've inserted the reverb. So as I turn it up, we'll hear reverb being applied to the voice.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies. Get out.
It doesn't need a lot of it. But just putting a little, if I go too much with it, it sounds like this.
Don't wanna deal with you.
And that also sounds completely unnatural, sounds ridiculous. So we're going to bring it back. And my rule of thumb is that however much you think the reverb is that you need, dial it back by 25 or 30%.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies. Get out of my mind.
Now I'm going to put some in the back-end vocals, and I always put a little bit more in the back-end vocals, because the other thing to realize about reverb is it also controls your sense of front to back in the mix. The more reverb there is on something, the more it sends it to the back of the mix. And so the lesser important instruments might have a little bit more reverb on them, so they're not clouding out the sense of front to back with the lead vocals.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies.
Okay, now we can hear the mix without the reverb. I'll just turn it off for a moment.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies.
Hear how sterile it now seems, and compare that with the reverb.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every
Okay, and one thing I like to do is also add some different reverbs. So we don't just have to have one. I can also go and put another type of reverb that might be on a chamber preset. So hold on, I'm going to go add another bus send. I'll put this on number 11. It's created my reverb 2, but I'm going to call this one a chamber. And I'm going to go back to my Verb Suite Classics and insert that. And in here I'm going to change my type of preset. Now you don't have to have this particular plugin. Although I do highly recommend that you get it because it's incredibly cheap when you get it on your subscription service. But this particular preset I have for chamber here always sounds very nice to me as well.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies, get out of my mind.
Okay, that sounds lovely. We can go and put some reverb on the guitars as well. I'll put some of that chamber reverb on them. Now the drums, gotta be a bit careful with that because you can already hear there's quite a bit of sort of room sound on it from these overhead mics, but I might usually go and put a bit on the snare drum. And that's thanks to Phil Collins and his producers that got us used to hearing lots of reverb on snares. But I might go and create a third reverb for that and put a different kind of reverb on there, and this one is going to be called a plate. So I'm now getting to some slightly more advanced things here. If you just have one reverb, just go ahead and use that and play around with the different presets in it and see what you like. If you're looking for some more advanced tips and tricks here, then this is one of my number one tools which has made my mixer sound good in the last few years, is to go and use this Verb Suite Classics. And I'm going to go once again to this BM7 and I'm going to go to preset and go to plate, sorry, I'm going to call it the London plate preset. Now the snare drum, I always like to turn it up a little bit more decay. Snare drum sounds like this. A bit of reverb on it now. Okay, so the mix is starting to come together. Just once again, I'll turn these reverbs off. Sounds like this.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies.
And then with the reverb.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies.
And the last thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and put some delay on things. Now I'm also going to do another bus send for the delay. Put on number 13. Now you can, of course, insert reverbs and delays directly onto the channels like we did with our EQs and our compressors, but I think it's a better way to do them with bus sends because it means we can apply, instead of having to create 10 reverbs or 15 reverbs or whatever we're going to need for all of our session, you can just create 1 or 2 or 3 and you can bus the signals to them. So it's a lot more efficient way of working. And also students that put using presets which have got a lot of reverb on them, such as in GarageBand, every time I bring up a preset in there it always goes and loads up a reverb on the track. It ends up making the mix sound too washy and too dense and too much mess all over the place because often those reverbs are just focused on making each individual instrument sound really good by themselves. But the thing is, what that's ignoring is that the instruments need to sound good in the context of everything else. So setting up reverbs and delays on these bus sends is a much better way of doing it. And so for delay, usually I would go to, my favorite delay is the, where is it? Sound Toys Echo Boy. That's one I'd highly recommend, but I'm just going to go with the basic delay inside Logic for now. I'll go for a stereo delay. Now delay is always tempo dependent as well. So I'm not quite sure what the tempo of this piece is here at the moment. It's probably around about 130 or 100, something like that, 120 maybe. So therefore maybe our tempo of our session at the top here might work fine. But you don't have time to check that right now. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the vocals and send it as delay and see what it sounds like.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies.
I've just turned off the reverb. Turn off the reverb so we can just hear the delay.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part.
So even using just the stock setting out of it without any preset sounds pretty good. It's got slightly different delay in my left headphone to our right headphone because they're set to different amounts. But it gives a little bit of thickness and texture. And the delay, once again, you don't want it to be a gimmick. You don't want people to hear lots of delay and think, oh, I can hear delay. It's got to be a subtle thing. So whatever you think the level is, back it off by 20%.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies. Every time a part of me dies.
So look at the before and after of this vocal track. If we take off all our EQ and compression and all of our effects sends, it sounds like this.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies every time a part of me dies.
And then with our EQ, it sounded like this.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies every
So a lot more clarity and presence. And then with the effects, the 2 reverb and the delay sends.
Don't wanna deal with you and your lies every time a part of me dies. Get out of my mind.
So that basically wraps it up. We've now looked at all the process of mixing, and it's now your job to take these very tracks, which you can also download from the comment section below, and have a go at mixing them to get them to this stage.